Cold Red Sea, the new album. I've had the title since early 2022 when I wrote a song called Cold Red Sea, which ironically didn't make it onto the final track listing for the album. But writing the music has dated back as far as 2021 when the project first started. There's a couple songs on here that were written around the same time as the songs that ended up on Strange Days. And a few of those I just held back because I figured maybe they didn't fit Strange Days as a record, and maybe I wasn't there yet creatively with everything else. And I thought maybe hanging on to a couple of these things and kind of having a head start for the next album would be a good idea. So Cold Red Sea is the second album I've done pretty much completely on my own. Strange Days was completely done on my own, performed, produced, mixed, mastered, all of it. Cold Red Sea is one that was done again. I wrote, performed, mixed it, produced it, mastered it. But I did bring in some help on this one. One of those people being Tim, who is the live drummer for Dead on a Sunday. He came in and played drums on 3 tracks, I think it was. And then I had enlisted some help from some other friends, a guitarist of mine and producer friend and a songwriter, just to help with some small things, maybe things I wasn't hearing, and maybe, have a different idea about something, which tends to, be needed when you're in the forest and you can't see the trees, so to speak. So the first track, Growing Wings, is actually the last piece of music that was written for Cold Red Sea. I had all of the songs arranged on the album, and I realized that I should have an intro track because that would be really cool. I really like albums that have intro tracks. Some of my favorite albums have these big kind of epic intros that just hype you up, and then the band plays them live, and the crowd gets hyped up by it. So I knew I needed one of those, and I wanted to do something that was not in 4/4. Most of the record is in 4/4 time, but Growing Wings is in 3/4. And I just wanted to do something that kind of had that sort of like an epic 80s rock type feel to it. So I think I did all right. I think I did all right on that one. Let's see, the second song on the album is My Own Enemy, which is an older track. It was written, actually I wrote My Own Enemy in New York on a little trip. And it's crazy that the same day that I came up with the riff for My Own Enemy is the same day that the Bobcore thing went viral for the first time ever on TikTok. Which, so that song, I knew I had to put it on the record because there's like a piece of history there. And I was in a hotel room, and I had brought a Fender Strat and it's a laptop, and wrote that riff, and came home and sorted out, the rest of the structure of the song and the lyrics and everything about the song. And I've been sitting on that one for a while. It's one of the songs that is similar to a lot of things that are on Strange Days, but I feel like the performance is elevated and the vision and the direction is more clear now. My Own Enemy is also one that I had Zach Newton. He's a guitarist in Denver and a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time, played in bands together on and off for 20 years. And he came in and did the lead guitar on that, which I really loved that solo, and it really gave a different vibe. There's actually 2 different guitar solos in that song. There's the main one that happens, which is really obvious, and then there's another one that happens after the last chorus, and it's like, there ain't no going back, and then there's like a lead guitar under that. That's me playing lead, and there's a big difference between the way Zach plays and I play. Zach is more of like he's kind of more of like an 80s shredder. You can really hear it in his playing, as to where my playing's a lot more kind of bluesy and bendy, and I don't have those kind of chops for lead guitar like he does. And then the end of the song is it's actually one of my favorite riffs on the record. It's It's got like, over the screaming, it's got this chromatic kind of walk up. It reminds me of just something that's it feels kind of surf, but also like very 90s to me. I just really love moments like that sort of throw it back to another time. Not that I don't think the music that I'm writing does that anyways, but just giving a little different flavor in there. The third track on the album is Pray, and Pray is one of my favorites on the record for so many reasons. I like the composition of it a lot. I like the riff, even though I realize it's very similar to a riff that the band Ghost has. It's got a very like 80s kind of metal thing to the riff. Well, it still has a punk rock attitude to it. And what I thought was interesting about it is I sing, up high in my range. Like for me, that's pretty high during the verses and the pre-chorus. And then when the chorus hits, and you're used to things lifting, but I kind of drop the vocal down into kind of that more like bobcore register of mine. I remember singing the demo down for that and thinking that was like pretty interesting and different. It's a lot of fun to play live. Again, that's a song that I had Zach Newton, who also played on My Own Enemy, come in and do the guitar solo for that. And it's probably one of my favorite guitar solos just like ever. And maybe I'm biased because it's on my record. I think that it sings really well, and he just really nailed that performance on that song. So then there's Nightmare, which is a song that I wrote last summer. You'll find I don't really talk on here about what the songs mean to me, because I don't want to take away what they mean to the listener by saying what they mean to me. Dave Grohl said it, if you sing a song to 5,000 people for one reason, 5,000 people sing it back to you for 5,000 different reasons. And I think that's true. So I like there to be, that sort of shroud of mystery of what it's about, and just the ability for people to come up with, let the song mean to them what it means to them, and let them have their own thing. It's not mine anymore once it's released into the world. It's for everyone. It's yours. It's theirs now, So, Nightmare's got some pretty dark lyrics to it, but it's kind of like I do this thing where I sing dark lyrics over like major chord progressions a lot, like major chords, and that's something I think is cool about Nightmare. And I really want to do a song that had a shuffle feel to it. I know I had a shuffle feel on the first record too, on Revenge, but something that's a little more like kind of mid-tempoed but had a cool shuffle to it. And it's a triplet over 4/4, and it's got that nice swing on it. And that's just, I spent a long time on the lyrics for that song. I came up with a chorus really quick. This tends to be how these things happen. If I have a good idea, I'll come up with a piece of it really fast, and then then the work comes in, like the labor comes in to figure out what it means, and deep dive on the lyrics. And writing lyrics for me is probably the hardest thing about doing music. I usually come up with the musical compositions of the instruments fairly quickly, but I spend a long time on the lyrics. And there's a lot of songs, a lot of Dead on Sunday songs that will never see the light of day because I can't finish the lyrics on them. I don't like to write drivel. I like it to mean something to me, because I have to get on stage and and represent this thing and sing this thing, and it's got to mean something to me to mean something to someone else. So, Nightmare is one of those songs that almost didn't see the light of day. And it went through a lot of different recording processes too. I remember I added a lot of parts at different times. The bridge with the heavy guitar and the screaming came way later. There's actually a completely alternate version of Nightmare that has a completely different intro and first verse to it. I let my friend Lee, who's a producer, listen to Nightmare, and he was like, it's cool, but I wish that it like did the shuffle thing right away, because I didn't have it doing. I had this really cool bass line up front, but it wasn't like shuffling. It wasn't swinging. It was just like very, very straight, very staccato, and then it kind of went into this like shuffle groove. He felt like that was awkward, and I was too close to this, married to the song to realize if it was or not. So, he got me to try a couple other things. Yeah, I ended up liking the new version more, which is the version you now hear on the record. All right, so Bapari. Bapari is the dark wave track of the album. I know I talk a lot of shit about goth and a dark wave, and I post a lot about goth and dark wave, and not talking shit in a negative sense, just talking about it. And I actually don't consider Dead on a Sunday to be a goth band or a dark wave band. I realize that there is Dead on a Sunday music that is very goth adjacent and very dark wave feeling at times, especially stuff on the Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead EP and the Undercover Volume 1 EP. So Bapari, I was in Maui after our first full US tour just this past fall. Again, I do this thing where I bring like just one guitar. It's this Fender Stratocaster, and I bring just a laptop and a mic and an interface, and I just quickly record ideas. So I spent a lot of time like at the beach and hanging out with my friends and eating a bunch of food and stuff like that, and just kind of sketching ideas maybe in the mornings or late at night. Everything was sounding very kind of like, I was listening to a lot of like surf because I think I was in Maui, so I was listening to a lot of like surf rock and surf goth, quote unquote, like Desmond Doom, who's this Australian artist. He does kind of like this surfy goth thing, and so I was writing a lot of like surfy riffs with like kind of dark wave beats, and yeah, Bapari just kind of fell out. At least the riff did. When I got home, I was going through ideas from the trip, and there's maybe 20 ideas or so, and Bapari is one that really stuck out to me as something that was usable and something I could develop into a Dead on a Sunday song. It has some Spanish lyrics in it as well as English, so it's kind of half and half. And Bapari is Dance for Me, and I just thought it'd be cool to do something that wasn't just in English the whole time. A lot of music I listen to isn't always in English. A lot is dark wave and goth adjacent stuff, especially Haunt Me and French Police. They sing a lot of Spanish lyrics, and so I thought it would be cool to do some Spanish lyrics, and ask our live guitarist Frank, because Frank's Hispanic, so I was like, am I pronouncing this stuff correctly? Does it make sense? And he was like, oh yeah, it's good. So it ended up being on the record. You Suck the Life Out of Me. It was getting down to the end of the year in 2023, and I knew I needed to start wrapping up writing for the album. And as you close in on finishing like a body of work, and you're looking at everything you have, and I usually write like somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50 ideas for an album, and I just start narrowing it down and finish checking off things and finishing things, and just really it's about seeing what gets finished and I'm excited about the most at the end. And I got down there, and there was it was a good batch of songs, but I felt like maybe I'm kind of missing something. Maybe there's some vibes on this record I'm sort of missing, or maybe there's a different direction or a type of song that could be taken to really push this thing in a new direction. So I called my friend Bryce Fox. He's a songwriter that lives in Nashville, and we've worked on stuff in the past. Before we've done some projects together and written a ton of songs together. And he's just a great person and a great songwriter, and he's a really great lyricist. So I went out to his house for like 3 or 4 days, and we just sat in his studio and just messed around, nothing too serious, and probably wrote about 5 or 6 things. And You Suck was one of those things that when I got home and was listening through the songwriting demos, You Suck was in there. And I thought it was, it's a great message about what the band is. It's kind of vampire-y and dark and tragic. And I feel like I kind of have a lot of that sort of happening in Dead on a Sunday thematically. I remember the night we wrote it, Bryce actually came in the room and was like, I was listening to the song Nightmare of Yours, and I was like, man, what would be cool if we just had like a vampire song that was like, and he just had that chorus right away. He was just like, you suck the life out of me. And I was like, dude, love it. Sat down, got on the guitar right away, and I came up with the chord progression, and then the labor came in, and we sat there and did the melodies and the lyrics. And when I got home, there was the demo we had was vastly different. I remember the demo we had was a lot more rock, and there wasn't there was no banjo or anything in it. I got home and I started drafting out the song and working on the vocals, and we had a lot of different takes of vocals. Some of Bryce singing and some of me singing, and we kind of pieced together this demo. So I came to find out that Bryce is a very different singer than I am. So the way that he chooses to deliver things is it sounds weird for me to do it that way. So I had to sit and rewrite a lot of the verse melodies, and there was a whole pre-chorus that I cut out and changed to the kind of System of a Downy thing I'm doing now. That's a slow, that with the vibrato thing in there. That's very like kind of a me thing to do. Is to the one we had before was kind of, I don't want to say it was rappy, but it kind of had a little bit of a hip hop flow to it. And I just don't think I sound cool doing those things. So once I got the vocals sort of sorted out on that thing, I went back in and I was like, this song just, it's cool, but it's like, and I had it sounding, the song went through a lot of transformations. So I had it sounding very kind of folky, but still kind of rock a little bit. And I was like, I need something like that just sets the thing apart from any other song that's, in the record. And I had gotten a banjo a couple summers ago and just kind of loosely messed with it and learned how to play it or whatever. And I decided, let's see what the banjo sounds like. So I sat down and taught myself the chords that were on the guitar, and I put the banjo in there, and I was like, yeah, this is fucking cool now. I need to do something, different with this. And my initial instinct was to make it very like folky. So then the next version of it was I added I hired a violinist to play the violin, and I hired a theremin player to do the theremin solo that you hear. That sounds like a wailing banshee that's after the second chorus. And I had this whole version that was like, it was what you hear now, but it didn't have the heavy chorus that happens in the beginning. That's got kind of a Black Parade feel. That didn't happen until I sent it to my friend Lee Miles out in Los Angeles. He sent it over to him, and I was like, I'm just going to bounce out some stems for you, just like a vocal and a guitar, and just like, I'm not going to show you what I've done. Just take this stuff and do whatever you want. Produce it however you want, and then send it back to me. And he, spent like a week or two on it, and he sent this thing back, and I was listening to it, and it was very rock, and so I was like, this isn't really what I want. I like my version better. I like the folky thing I'm doing better. But it hit this part where it just, you sucked the life out, and it was doing those big on the fucking guitars, and like I said, it felt very like Black Parade to me, and just big. And I heard in my head like, I hear like 8-string guitars on this, and then I was like, it'd be so cool is if I took his version with the choruses that are all like just big and rock like that and open, and I like collided it along with my folk version with the banjo over the top and the violin and all that shit happening. And that's what I did, and it worked out. And that's probably my favorite song to play live from the new album. Okay, and that leads us to Hanging on Red. It is the oldest Dead on a Sunday song on the record, and probably one of the oldest Dead on a Sunday songs, period. It was written late March of 2021, so I didn't start writing Dead on a Sunday music until, actually, remember the date, it was March 16th I wrote So What If It Kills Me, which is on Strange Days. And there was a handful of songs that were written around that time. There was like a 3-week period there where I wrote a lot of things that ended up on Strange Days. We're talking about So What If It Kills Me. We're talking about Stay. We're talking about Ghosted. Yeah, Hanging on Red was in there. And I knew I loved that song. It's a song that I haven't been able to write one quite like it since. That gives me the same feeling. There's something about the way it feels like The Cure, but it feels like kind of country, but it has that cool synth thing that happens over the pre-chorus, and there's so many things about it that I just really love about music, and I kind of wrapped it up into one with that song, which I thought was really great. But I knew when putting Strange Days together that, one, I didn't feel like it fit Strange Days very well, and then two, I felt like it was one of the songs I felt like I wanted to have more of an audience before I put it out, because when I released Strange Days, like this was like pre-Bobcore. This is, no one listened to my shit, like, maybe like 20 or 30 people on the internet that kind of gave a shit. My tracks were getting, 20 plays a day type of thing. So some of the songs I realized I needed to hang on to for a later date. Hanging on Red was one of those. It actually almost didn't make it onto Cold Red Sea. I was very uncertain if I would put it on the album, but when it came crunch time and I was adding tracks, I just decided that let's do it. Strange New World. Strange New World opened up a whole new way of singing for me when I came up with that. And I think I wrote it about a year ago. I remember singing that verse, and I had never sang anything like that before. I usually am either very like punk rockish abrasive with my vocal, or very like, the lower tone, like goth kind of Bob thing. So Strange New World allowed me to find a different way that I could express myself with my voice. And what's interesting about that song is I remember I wrote it and I recorded all the parts down, and I was playing the demo for my friend Zach, who's you have a really great ear for music, and he's like, something just doesn't sound right about this chorus and this particular chord, but this particular melody you use, and maybe you should try revisiting that and changing that. So I did, and I have this weird thing where every time I'll make something cool, but then every time I try to apply like the theory, like music theory to it, I just fuck it up, I just ruin it. So I ran into that with Strange New World. So I was like, okay, so trying to apply the theory to it, and it just doesn't have that. It's like a magic to it that was all of a sudden gone. And so I had to get down the rabbit hole of figuring out what that was. And I realized that I was playing, I was in this certain minor key, and then I was playing this certain Dorian mode over. This is for music nerd stuff, okay, guys? So feel free to tune out here. But I was playing this Dorian mode, singing this Dorian mode over this minor key that it's kind of like Beatles. Like, they do a lot of music that shouldn't. I'm not comparing myself to the Beatles. I'm just saying there's a lot of music that, if you look at it from a theory standpoint of the Beatles, it shouldn't work, but when you listen to it, it just does. And so Strange New World's one of the songs that, just, reaffirmed to me, like, don't get in your head about the theory. There's no right or wrong. If it sounds good, it's good. So Chains is a very special song for me. Chains was written 2 years ago. Very quickly, I came up with I call it, the chorus, but I call it the drop, because I didn't originally write it as a Dead on Sunday song. I was kind of messing around with like electronic, like EDM, like future bass, because I come from, that kind of background. I did that kind of stuff for a little while, and I remember sitting around one night and just messing around, like, there's this thing in there called side chaining. It's a technique, and it's that kind of woo, 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 woo sound that you hear, like kind of where the music cuts and makes room for the kick drum, or, whatever instrument, it ducks the volume out of whatever you're side chaining. And I was like, there's not any tracks that I hear that do that type of side chaining in a different time signature than 4/4. Most music we listen to is in 4/4, like, especially like pop and dance and stuff like that. And I was like, what if it was in 6/8? And I did the side chaining in 6/8, because in 6/8 and it has a waltz to it. The feel of the songs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives it the kind of swaying waltz feel that it has. So I'd come up with that, and I thought that was cool. So the next day I, was just sitting in the studio and going through ideas, and like, oh, let's listen to that thing from last night. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. What if I put some guitar on here? And I, put some guitar on there. And the initial guitar that was on was much more kind of country sounding. And Chains does that interesting thing too, where it's in C minor, but it borrows this major chord from a different key that happens. And it just, anytime you borrow a chord, it just kind of adds that magic to it. So I had that borrowed chord in there, and then I just started singing the vocal. And then Chains is another one of those breakthrough moments for me as a singer, because I haven't been singing very long. I've only been singing, like really singing, for 3 years now, 3.5 years now. So when I came up with the vocal for Chains, and it was the first time I realized that I could hit notes like that and like dig into my voice like that, and it almost had like this bluesy type of like quality and tonality to it. And I remember playing it for my friend Mitch, who's a phenomenal singer, and he was like, man, I can't believe that's you. That's just fucking, I can't believe that's you singing. Like, he just didn't buy it. And so it was like, one of those like really affirming moments where it's like, yeah, like you can sing, like, because I live with a lot of self-doubt about, singing, and like I'm just always like, I'm not a singer, and I don't have, I don't sound like everyone else. Like, I have my voice is just my voice. I can't do that thing and sound like every other singer that's out right now. That doesn't work for me. I've been down that road, and it just doesn't happen. So it's always very reassuring to hear people say things like, I really love the sound of your vocal on this. And, especially from people that I look up to as a vocalist themselves. And yeah, so, I recorded the chains, and I had all the chains done, and I knew I wanted to put it out. I didn't know where, I didn't know when. I knew it didn't fit under Dead on Sunday, especially not in, early 2022. This is before Strange Days even came out. And that album's a lot more kind of punk geared with some goth flavor to it. And I knew it didn't fit there. I knew that if it was going to get heard, I needed to have an audience that would listen to it and not just get lost on releasing it to nobody. Because that's what I did with many songs that were on Strange Days. So I sat on Chains, and I wasn't sure if it would end up on Cold Red Sea. I wasn't sure if it would end up on Dead on a Sunday at all. I wasn't sure if maybe it was just a song for me, but it is, like I said, a very special song to me, about someone very special. And I figured it was time that the world heard it, and it lived somewhere not on my hard drive. All right, On Through the Pain. Tim, the live drummer in Dead on Sunday, calls this my Dragon Force song. Not that it sounds anything like Dragon Force. To me, honestly, On Through the Pain sounds more like a I don't know, mid-career AFI tune than it does anything else. But it's very rock, and I really like the guitar riffs, especially the one that happens in the pre-chorus. It's very Crazy Train right there. Not the lead riff from Crazy Train, but the riff that happens after that. It's got that same sort of feel. And I wrote that riff. I knew I liked that riff a lot, and came up with the chorus really quick. And I didn't know the lyrics were, they were on through the pain. That was a throwaway lyric, like, because I just scratch, just turn on a mic and scratch vocals over things. I just record whatever comes to the top of my head. Flow of conscious writing, it's called. That's pretty much how all Dead on Sunday music gets written. I don't have a plan, rarely, to be like, oh, I'm gonna write, sit down and write this song. My stuff usually comes from, I write a riff, and I sing on top of it melody lines and demos, and I get word shapes, and I develop lyrics based on those word shapes, and then I have to figure out, what these lyrics are about to me, what they mean to me, and get down that road. So yeah, On Through the Pain. And that's another one that my friend Zach, who did the solos on My Own Enemy and on Prey, played the solo on Through the Pain. I think that was the first one he played on. So I guess I take back what I said earlier. He actually played on lead guitar on 4 songs, not 3, because I forgot about this song. And when the record was coming down to, it was time to put the vinyl track list together. Because the vinyl's not as long as the digital release. There's 2 songs missing from the vinyl that are on the digital release. It's All I Wear Is Black and the intro track Growing Wings. And the reason for that is because you can only fit so many minutes of music on a vinyl record, but doing a double vinyl is twice as expensive. And let's be honest, like, pressing vinyl is very expensive. So, I didn't know if people would buy this record, so I didn't want to press, 500 double vinyls. So I was like, what songs can I axe from the vinyl version, and it was between On Through the Pain and All I Wear Is Black, and I couldn't decide which one to cut from the vinyl and have only on the digital release. But it made sense to have the intro because it's short gone, and then it made sense to maybe an ending song, and I knew I was going to end with All I Wear Is Black. So On Through the Pain made it on the record. Okay, Bloody September. It's one song from Cold Red Sea that's been out the longest since last summer, because I knew I had to put it out before September would happen, because it would make no sense to put it out after September or like in the middle of winter. It would need to be something that came out in like, August or September. So I put it out in late August of last year, and it reminds me a lot of Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. It has that sort of feel to it. I love the way the chords feel in that song. And I remember the night I wrote it, I was just sitting on the couch with my laptop, and this is how a lot of things will get started. I'll sit with a laptop, I'll program some drum beats, and then I'll just like just use the draw tool and just draw in chords, and like you can just fiddle in like on the on the laptop keyboard, just fiddle in little synth lines over that. And that's how Bloody September got started. Was I had a very like, it was very like dark wave sounding at first, and it had just like this pulsing bass, and then but it had this cool synth, and it had these cool chords. So when I took it into the studio and I started to dig into it and put guitar on it and live bass on it, and get like actual drums on it that weren't just like some drum sampled loops, it started to take a life of its own, and it started to feel kind of more like this sort of like dark wave country, like goth adjacent hybrid. And yeah, that's how Bloody September came out and ended up. And I had my friend Lynx sing the backup vocals that happen in the bridge leading into the chorus. She's a great singer. She writes great music. She went on tour with us last fall, and we did the song live. The Passing, the metalcore song of the record. I love metalcore. I love double bass. I love 7 and 8 string guitars, screams, all that stuff. So I bought a 7-string guitar a couple summers ago while I was on vacation. I was in a guitar store, and they had a Jackson 7-string there, and it's cheap. It's like $200, and it was my birthday. So I was like, I'm gonna buy myself a little birthday present. Kind of a cheapskate sometimes. So, I was kind of like, spend $200 on this guitar, and got this 7-string, and honestly got the 7-string, didn't touch it for months, maybe like a year. And I do that all the time. I'll buy some instrument and not use it for a year or more, like the banjo, and you suck. I had the 7-string sitting around. So last summer I was, in the studio doing the thing where I make myself sit in front of a computer and, play, just play guitar, play a synth, whatever, just to get ideas out, just to get songs out, just to see, there's something in me to be had. So I figured, what the hell, I'll play the 7-string today, and got the 7-string out and wrote most of that song fairly quickly. I realized what I was coming up with was very metal. I did the drums to it, and they were even more metal. I was like, how I got in this thing, like, how are you going to sing this? Like, you're not a metal singer. And again, it's one of those songs where it's like I sort of do that bobcore register over the chorus, and I think that's what makes it interesting, this song, because it's not something that I think you would typically expect to hear vocally over a song that's got instrumentation like this. I knew I loved this song the second I came up with the chorus for it. I knew I loved this song even more when the breakdown happened. And then I knew the song had to come out when I came up with the screaming, like the echoey screaming thing that happens in the bridge leading into the last chorus. Again, it's a very metalcore song. It's not something I would expect to have on Dead on a Sunday, but I like to think that this project isn't tied down by genres. I like to think of Dead on a Sunday as its own genre, just Dead on a Sunday. So I think as long as I'm singing on it, it's sort of like the gloves are off, anything goes. It can be country, it can be dark wave, it can be metalcore, it can be goth, it can have a banjo. I don't want to limit myself to just a small palette of colors, and I don't want to limit the listener to only experiencing a small palette of colors. I want them to be able to experience the things that go on in my head and the ideas I have, and that's why I do this, is to is to get the things in my head out. And if I feel like those things are something worth sharing, then I end up sharing them. And The Passing is the last song officially on Cold Red Sea, as it's the last song on the vinyl. So the core of the album, I would say is everything between My Own Enemy, which is the second track on the digital release, all the way to The Passing, which is the second to last track on the digital release. But that's like the core of what Cold Red Sea is. And that leads us into All I Wear Is Black. Again, probably the last actual full song that was written for the album, because I don't really consider the intro Growing Wings to be a song. It's, only a minute and a half and there's no vocals. I kind of had this idea one day, and it's rare that a song starts, for me personally, when I'm writing by myself, it's rare that a song starts from a vocal idea and let alone a lyric. But I just had this idea, like, I was saying something about, but all I wear is black. And I was like, man, that'd be a cool song title. It'd be a cool theme on a song. So I grabbed the guitar and, came up with the all I wear is black. Wrote that song really quickly that afternoon. I think I did the whole entire song in probably one day, probably just an afternoon. And then I sent it to my live drummer, Tim, and had him play drums on it. And that was the last thing that had to get added to it. Another creative breakthrough I had with All I Wear Is Black, it's a very, very simple song. It's 3 chords that just repeats. But it was when I was doing the vocal, I was really into listening to a lot of shoegaze. And I was like, it'd be cool to have like a shoegazy song. And this one could be a shoegazy song. I just need to adjust the guitar sound and the vocal sound. So I was messing around with the guitar, and I had recorded some of the vocal already, and I was dragging this chorus effect onto the guitar track and accidentally dragged on the vocal. But then I set it up as a vibrato effect, and I hit play, the guitar is gonna be a vibrato chorus, and it was on the vocal. And I was like, wow, that sounds fucking awesome. I love the song so much more now. So I printed the vocal off that way, and I'm sure a lot of people will probably think it's, some kind of auto tune or something kicking my voice around. It's not. It's a chorus effect that's doubling the vocal up, making it wide, and then there's a vibrato effect on it, giving it that sort of pitchy waver that happens in the track. Yeah, I just thought the song was a great way to end the album. I thought it was a great message to kind of wrap up in a playful manner, like what the band's about. It's depressive, but it's over a lot of major chords, so it feels light. It feels happy. It feels good. This music's meant to make even the most depressed individuals take joy in their depression. But yeah, there you have it. That's basically Cold Red Sea and most of the process that went into it, and kind of my thoughts behind it without getting into what the songs are specifically about. Thanks for listening to this commentary, to my music. Hopefully I continue to release music that doesn't disappoint you too much, and we will see you on tour.